ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सवधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पुंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरून् दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यईश्वरम्। हरि ओम तत्सत्। श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्र महारानी की जय। श्री श्री गौरनिताय की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Hare Krishna. Today let's continue discussing on the fifth chapter of the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Chapter is titled The Cause of All Causes. Just a quick recap. Narada Muni had asked 6 questions to Lord Brahma. Yad Rupam, Yad Atisthanam, Yad Srishtam, Yad Samstam, Yad Param, Yad Cha. What is the characteristic of this universe? What is the shelter of this universe? How is this universe created? How is it conserved? What is it depending on? And what are the ingredients of this entire creation? And in response to that, first of all, Lord Brahma clarifies to Narada that he is not the Supreme Lord. Instead, he is just a secondary creator of the original creation that's done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And after that, he proceeds to answer these questions one by one. First, he answered about Yad Rupam. What are the different characteristics? And we saw how it's the same 5 subject matters which Krishna has spoken in Bhagavad Gita: Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, Karma, which Lord Brahma also says here as the characteristic of this universe. He says Vasudeva, he is the origin of everything, and each of these different characteristics of this universe are Jiva, Dravya, Kala, Karma, and Swabhava. It's important to take some time to understand these different characteristics because they are very relevant to our discussion today about Yat Srishtam, which is one of the questions of Narada Muni. How is this universe or this creation came to be? So it's the same characteristics which you will see in a bit more detail today. And then Brahma, after answering this question, he answers a couple more questions, which is Yad Atisthanam and Yad Param. Yad Atisthanam, what is the shelter of this universe? Yad Param, what is this universe depending on? And we saw this verse which is similar to one of the previous verses we saw. Narayana Paraveda. Narayana is the Gati. He is Jnana, Paramjnana, Paramtapa, Parayoga, Paramakaha, Paraloka, Paradevata also. In other words, the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, he is the shelter of this entire universe. It is Lord Sri Krishna alone who this universe or this material creation is depending on. Then that brings us to today's topic, which is the 4th question, Yad Shrishtam, creation of this universe. As I was sharing in the previous session, this is one of the most technical sections in Srimad Bhagavatam. Normally we have a tendency to skip such sections, brushing it aside that it's not important. It is important because it appears twice. One here we see in the 2nd canto, and we'll see again in the 3rd canto with more detail. to what is given here. So if something appears twice, definitely there has to be some importance to it. So even though this topic is very technical, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have devotees who put a lot of effort. So today I'm going to share with you a chart from Bhagavad Subodhini, and we'll be going through that step by step. And to whatever our level of capacity is, we can still appreciate and understand. But it will definitely give us a good framework for this particular topic. As I said, more details of which we will see in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me share my screen and we'll go through this section. When you follow this, I should add a disclaimer here. You may not understand everything fully. In fact, it's one of those topics which the more we hear, more we get confused also. So don't worry, you're not alone. It takes repetition. As we always say, the repetition is the mother of learning, especially when it comes to studying Shastras. We have to study it repeatedly. We see great devotees of the Lord, Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhishthir Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Vidura. They always keep asking questions, they always keep learning. Arjuna, everyone. So Shastras are meant to be learnt by discussion. As Narada himself is exemplifying here. As much as we see Narada as the teacher in many parts of the scriptures, here we see Narada taking the role of a student and asking from his guru, which is Lord Brahmaji. But then Brahma also we see he is putting forth the questions to Supreme Lord himself and he is getting. So we'll see many instances like that. Even when Lord Ram, when he greets the sages, he would put forth the questions, so taking the role of a mere mortal. Similarly, we'll see even Vasudev, who is none other than the father of the Supreme Lord, he would ask the questions to Narada Muni, putting himself in a very humble position. So repeatedly hearing and repeatedly inquiring, that's the only way how we can understand the Shastras, only by this process of hearing, which is also devotional service, Shravanam, very first part of devotional service, one of the first angas of Navida Bhakti is Shravanam, simply by hearing, but repeated hearing. We can understand it to a certain extent. I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. As I said, I took a lot of guidance from the lectures by different devotees. Plus, I went through this material of Bhagavad Subodhini also. It definitely helped me to understand to whatever extent I can. So I'm happy to share with you. And as I said, if you can't understand it fully, don't worry, you're not alone. So this question about Yad Srishtam, how did the creation of this material universe happen? It starts with Karanadakshay Vishnu, who is the Supreme Lord. He is Lord's Swamsa. Swamsa means Lord's expansion. You'll also find Kala. Kala means expansion of the expansion. So here, Karanadakshay Vishnu, also known as Mahavishnu, he is on the Karana Sagar. He glances on the material energy known as Maya. So that glance, when he just casts his glance on the material universe, or rather the material energy known as Maya, in that glance he infuses few of the characteristics we saw earlier. In that glance he sends three things. One is Kala, which is time, and second is two aspects in the activities of Jiva. One is Karma of the Jiva, which is the destiny, as well as the Swabhava, the inherent nature of the Jiva. So when Mahavishnu casts his glance on the material energy Maya, in that glance he infuses Kala, which is time. He also infuses Jiva, but in more detail, that Jiva means the destiny of the Jiva, the karma of the Jiva, as well as the Swabhava, which is the nature of the Jiva. Prabhupada would explain in an analogy, later we will see, Just like sometimes we sleep, if somebody wants to wake us up, they'll come wake us up. Hey, get ready to go to work, get ready to go to school. Similarly, we are all residing within the body of Mahavishnu before the creation comes to be. But after the creation, the Lord will wake us up. Hey, get up. It's time for you to go and do your karma. And by the way, these are the desires which you had inculcated prior to going to sleep within my body. And here you go. So take it and follow your nature. Continue doing your work, continue pursuing your material desires. So this is the love of the Supreme Lord. So Karanadaksha Vishnu, he infuses kala, time, he infuses the destiny or the karma of the jivas as well as the swabhava of the jiva. So kala, or in simple terms, he infuses both kala, which is time, as well as the jiva, which is us. So when he casts his glance and he infuses in that glance to the Maya Shakti, both kala and jiva into her, at that time, the Maya Shakti or the material energy being infused with kala and jiva gets a little agitated. That agitated state of Maya is known as pradhana. Pradhana is the agitated state of the material energy. Originally, material energy was alone. Now that material energy was agitated by the time as well as the jivas. When they both are infused in this material energy, now the material energy gets agitated. That agitated state of material energy is pradhana. So this pradhana also has the three modes of material nature, which is sattva-guna, rajoguna and tamoguna. Even though these three modes are there, they are in an unmixed state, or rather a mixed, undifferentiated state. So they are there, but they are not separately manifested yet. It's just as one single blob, inactive state, so to speak, where none of the states of this modes are fully manifested yet. So that undifferentiated state is known as pradhana, the agitated state of the material energy having been infused by Lords Kala and Jiva. That is known as pradhana. This pradhana then gets transformed into Mahatattva. Now, how does this transformation happen? In fact, from here you will see further transformation happening also, sub-transformation you see. What is the factor that causes this transformation? The Lord's Kala Shakti. That's why we say nothing but change is permanent in this world. Why? What causes that change? Time. In spiritual world also, there is time, but unlike in material world where time takes away everything, kalosmi loka shayakrit pravriddho, where time takes away everything, time destroys everything. In spiritual world, time enhances everything. Time acts in a completely different dimension, in a completely different nature in the spiritual world. But in material world, because the Lord had already infused time here, from this point onwards, what is the duty of time? Time just keeps the ball rolling. Time and tide waits for none. So that happened even before we all got our respective bodies, even before this universe came to be. Time has already been created by the Supreme Lord, by his glance. So with that glance, when he infused Kala, which is time, as well as the Jivas, he agitated the material energy. That agitated state is known as pradhana. Now, pradhana has got a time in it. Now, by the effect of time, the pradhana gets transformed into Mahatattva. Now, Mahatattva, same as pradhana, it has also got all the ingredients. But unlike pradhana, where the three modes of material nature are in an undifferentiated state, here we can see slowly Sattva-guna and Rajoguna slowly gaining their predominance over Tamoguna. Tamoguna is also there, but this state of Mahatattva is primarily in Sattva-guna and Rajoguna. Time is still there, and time again gets the ball rolling. From this state wherein only Sattva-guna and Rajoguna, which is mode of goodness and passion, being fully manifested, by the effect of time, this Mahatattva then gets transformed into Ahankara. It is at this state in Ahankara we have all the three modes completely manifesting separately, which is goodness, passion, and ignorance. But unlike Mahatattva, which is predominantly as a blob, which is predominantly in the mode of goodness and passion, by the effect of time, when Mahatattva gets transformed into Ahankara, now the predominance is taken over by Tamoguna. So that's what we see here, predominantly in Tamas. From this point onwards, again, transformation happens. From Ahankara, then we actually see the three Shaktis, they are getting manifested fully. One is the Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. Jnana Shakti predominantly is in Vaikarika, or in mode of goodness. Kriya Shakti, to do action, you need some passion, Tejasaha, which is mode of passion or Rajoguna. And Dravya Shakti is Tamasaha, which is primarily, it's like Jada Vidya we say, studying about matter. Jada means it's in total Tamogun, there's no activity at all. So Dravya or the Bhuta, the Panchabhutas and everything, they come under mode of ignorance. So now we have these three Shaktis, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. Now they in turn start further transformation, creating each one of these different aspects, which are as a whole called as Adi Daivam, Adi Atmam, and Adi Bhutam. Rings a bell? Adi Atmik Klesha, Adi Bhautik Klesha, and Adi Daivik Klesha. Which means Adi Bhautik Klesha means those difficulties or distresses that are caused by other living entities is Adi Bhuta. Adi Atma means self-inflicted, and Adi Daiva means that which is caused by. Adi Daivik Klesha means that which is caused by the pain, distress, anxiety caused by the demigods, like earthquake, tsunami, like that. So each of these different Shakti, Jnana Shakti creates Adi Daivam, Kriya Shakti creates Adi Atmam, and Dravya Shakti creates Adi Bhutam. Now what does this Adi Daivam consist of? The Adi Daivam consists of the mind and the sense devatas. So using the Jnana Shakti, or through Jnana Shakti, the creation of mind, which is our own Manaha, mind, and the 10 sense devatas. We'll go to that shortly. So through Jnana Shakti, the mind and the sense devatas, they are created. Through Kriya Shakti, our life air, which is known as the prana, as well as the 10 senses and intelligence are created. What are the 10 senses? 10 sense devatas are here. 10 senses means we have 5 knowledge acquiring senses. Sense of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Why are they called Jnanendriyas or knowledge acquiring senses? Means when we look at something, we want to understand, let us say whether it's going to rain today. So you look at the sky. Through the eyes, you look at the sky, but you are acquiring knowledge actually through the eyes. Because eyes sees this, feeds it to our mind, goes to intelligence. Intelligence then takes information from its memory, saying if the sky is like this, that means it's going to rain. If the sky is like this, it's not going to rain. If the sky is like this, it's going to be very sunny. So eyes are actually acquiring knowledge only. Likewise, you want to know how is prasad tasting today. You will take it, So your quest to understand about the taste of prasad is a knowledge. You want to have that knowledge about how is this prasadam tasting. Now how will you acquire it? You can look at it. Best way is now you will taste it. So tongue is also one of the knowledge acquiring senses. Similarly, I am sitting in a room here. If I want to know who is speaking in the other room, I would use my ears. Hey, who is hearing? Likewise, similarly, we use sense of smell. We also use sense of touch when we buy things. Is this good material when we buy some cloth? In this way, each one of the different senses are in one way or the other acquiring knowledge about the different things that are happening around us. That's why these 5 senses are known as Jnanendriyas. Jnana Indriya. Indriya means senses, Jnana means knowledge. Knowledge acquiring senses. Then we have Karmendriya. 5 Karmendriyas which are working senses. Voice, hands, they are working senses. Legs, genitals and the anus. These 5 are working senses, are Karmendriyas. So that is the 10 senses that are given here, as well as our Buddhi, intelligence. They are created through Kriya Shakti. Similarly, Dravya Shakti creates Bhutam. All the 5 Tanmatras. Tanmatras means the sense objects and 5 elements, Panchabhutas also. So we saw about the 10 senses here. What are the 5 Tanmatras or sense object? Sound, touch, form, taste, smell. They are the 5 Tanmatras. What are the 5 elements or the 5 Bhutas, Panchabhutas? Bhumir, Apo, Analo, Vayu, Gham. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Now, what is this transformation that's depicted here? The very first element that gets created by Dravya Shakti is ether, which is Akash. So, this ether, subtle form of that ether is sound. So that's why you see here arrow going this way. Just like we have this body and we have the soul. Soul is there always, which is relatively speaking in a subtle form, but it's in a spiritual form. But then the gross form is the body. Similarly, Akash itself is very subtle, we may think, but the sound is even more subtle. This is actually Panchabhuta, gross material elements only. Even though ether is also considered to be, any materialist may say, oh, that's very subtle, but still it's material. It's not subtler than the sound. Sound is much more subtle. That's why when we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the medium of sound is the one that's closest. Materially, you can't go anything more subtler than sound to spirituality. So that's why when we chant, even though we are using our gross senses to chant, but through this medium of sound, we are actually catapulted to the platform of spiritual existence, to Vasudeva, pure goodness platform. Because materially speaking, sound is the most subtlest. It is still material only. So we use the medium of sound to chant spiritual vibration, spiritual sound vibration. So likewise, so we see sound is more subtle, and then subtler form of ether is sound. And then the ether, again, remember Kala Shakti. By the transformation, all of this creation, transformation of one element to the other, they are all brought about by Kala Shakti, by the effect of time. So ether is there, ether then gets transformed into the next subtle sense, the touch, and then it forms the air. Basically, it happens like this. Subtle energy is more like the fuel in the furnace. So ether then gets transformed into air. Air then gets transformed into fire. Needless to say, when we say fire, there is a subtle form behind each one of these gross forms. So ether gets transformed into air, air gets transformed into fire, fire to water, and water finally to earth. And as we go from one transformation to the other, each one of the subsequent material element, they acquire all of the preceding qualities of the subtle, respective subtle elements, which means Ether has got sound. Air has got both the sense of touch as well as sound. So air has got both those tanmatras, effect of both those tanmatras. Likewise, fire has got both form, touch as well as sound. You can even think about it, you can easily understand it. If you look at a fire, fire has a certain form. You can also touch the fire. How do I know whether I'm touching the fire or not? If you put your hand somewhere, you touch it, you will get burnt. So that means you are touching it. Without touching, how can you get burnt? Likewise, fire also has got a sound, very subtle sound, but there is a sound. Likewise, you take water. Water has a certain taste. Fire doesn't have taste. Water has taste. Water has form. Water has touch. It also has sound. Now we may say water, usually we study in physics also, water takes the shape of the container in which it's actually held. Yes, but it's still taking a form. Similarly, fire, it takes a form. Air doesn't take the form. It doesn't stay in one place. It just moves around. So you see water, water has taste, form, touch as well as sound. Similarly, earth has got all of them. Earth has smell. Water doesn't have smell. Now we may say sometimes some liquid has smell that comes from the earthly particles in that liquid, not from liquid per se, not from water per se. So in this way, each one of these 5 tanmatras and 5 elements came to be. So the first element, bhuta, that got created was the ether. Then by the effect of time gets transformed into air, air gets transformed into fire, fire gets transformed into water, water gets transformed into earth. And each one of these different elements, they acquire the qualities of the preceding element. So earth, because it comes finally, it has the qualities of water, fire, air, ether, everything. Now, these are the 10 senses we saw, the 5 tanmatras and the 5 elements. Tanmatras means sense object. So these sound, touch, form, taste and smell, they are known as tanmatra. And 5 elements are known as, or panchabhutas. We are the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Now, we saw when Jnana Shakti creates Adidevam or mind, 10 sense devatas. As we said, because the devatas are getting created by this Jnana Shakti, they together are considered Adidevam. Likewise, prana, which is our life air, as well as our 10 senses intelligence. That's us. Prabhupada explains, the word Atma, depending on the context, can be used to denote our soul, some instances our mind, some instances our intelligence, and some instances even the body. So here we see Adi Atma used in the context of senses, intelligence, and prana. So this is Adi Atma and Adi Bhutam. Bhutam means the elements. So here we have Panchabhuta and Panchatanmatra, 5 sense objects and 5 bhutas. Now these sense devatas, each of these different senses that we have, as we said, 5 knowledge acquiring senses. The senses are created by Kriya Shakti, but the personalities in charge for those senses are created by Jnana Shakti. So what you see here, even though you see senses and devatas, it's not that both are created by Jnana Shakti. These senses are created by Kriya Shakti, as we see here, and the devatas are created by Jnana Shakti. That's what you see here. And what are these different devatas? For sense of ear, there is a devata. There is a demigod in charge for that. Who are they? There are the dig. Dig means direction. Directional demigods. Dig devatas. There are different demigods you will see. Eyes, the demigod in charge is Surya. Sun god, skin, Vayu, which is the wind god. Nose, Ashwini Kumaras, they are twins. We have 2 nostrils. You can remember Ashwini Kumaras. Tongue, Varuna, because without, when your mouth is totally dry, you can't taste anything. To taste something, you need some moisture in it. So, tongue has, the demigod in charge for that is Varuna, because Varuna is in charge for water. Hands, Indra. Feet, Upendra. Voice, Agni. Anus, Mitra. Genitals, Prajapati. So each of these different devatas they are created here through Jnana Shakti. So I'll go through this one again. So initially we saw Mahavishnu or Karanadakshai Vishnu, Karanarnavashai Vishnu. He casts his glance on the material energy, and in his glance he infuses the time, which is Kala, as well as Jivas, Kala and Jiva. But few aspects about Jivas. One is Karma, which is the destiny of the Jiva. So when Jivas come, along with the Jiva, their destiny also come with them. Along with the Jiva, their nature also come with them. That's what is given as Karma and Swabhava. So he infuses both Kala and Jivas into the material energy, Maya. So when he infuses that Kala and Jiva into the material energy or the nature gets agitated, and that agitated state is known as Pradhana, wherein the three modes are there, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, but they are not fully manifested yet in a differentiated state. They are still in an undifferentiated state. So that's what we call as Pradhana. Now with the effect of time which is already infused there, this Pradhana gets transformed into Mahatattva, and at the first stage of this transformation we see only Mahatattva, which is Sattva Guna, and Sutra Tattva, which is in Rajoguna. In other words, only the two modes are fully manifested here, which is Sattva Guna and Rajoguna, Vaikarika and Tejasa. Only those two are manifested. Again, Kala Shakti transforms this Mahatattva into Ahankara. It is at this stage we have goodness, passion and ignorance fully manifested, but Ahankara as such is being fully predominated by Tamoguna, whereas here that whole material energy is fully influenced by Sattva Guna and Rajoguna. When that material energy comes to from here all the way to Ahankara, at this time goodness, passion and ignorance, all three are there manifested, but the material energy predominantly is influenced by the mode of ignorance. Then it then creates three Shakti: Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti and Dravya Shakti. Jnana Shakti creates the mind and the 10 sense devatas. So together they are called as Adi Devam. Likewise, we have Kriya Shakti creating Prana, which is our life air, 10 senses and intelligence. Together they are Adi Atman. Likewise, Dravya Shakti creates the 5 Tanmatras, which is the sense objects and Panchabhutas. Together they are known as Adi Bhutam. And we saw how the 5 elements, they are created. Initially ether is created, subtle form of ether is the sound. By the effect of time again, we get ether getting transformed into air, air to fire, fire to water, water to earth, the subtle form of each one of them. We saw here sound, touch, form, taste and smell. Similarly, we have the 10 senses, the 5 Jnanendriyas and 5 Karmendriyas, and we also have their respective Devatas, which are created by Jnana Shakti, and we saw that list. So at this point of time, there are 23 elements altogether. How 23? So we have 5 plus 5, which is 10. Then we have, so the 5 Tanmatras and 5 elements, that is 10. Then we have 10 senses, which is 20. We have intelligence, 21. We have the Pradhana also, which is, let me see if I have that. I don't have that chart with me. So 23 elements altogether. So there is the 5 Tanmatras, which is the 5 sense objects. We have 5 Bhutas, which is the 5 gross elements we have, and then we have the 11 senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses and 5 working senses, 5 Jnanendriyas and 5 Karmendriyas. So put together it comes to 20. Then we have mind, which is 21. We have Ahankara, 22. We have Mahatattva, 23. In some instances you will see as 24 elements in Sankhya Yoga. Here we said mind as one single entity. In some instances the mind is counted as 2, as mind and intelligence. But in this section of Bhagavatam, it is given as 23. So this is how the 23 elements came to be, which is the 5 gross senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 working senses, which is 10, 5 sense objects, 5 tanmatras, 15, 5 bhutas, Bhumi Rapo Nala Vayu Kam, so that's 20. We have the mind, 21. We have the ahankara, 22. And then we have the pradhana, which is the mahatattva, which is 23 altogether. So these 23 elements, even though they are all created, we saw all of them, Adi Bhutam, Adi Devam, Adi Atmam, they are all there, but they are still staying there separately. There is no cohesive energy together to put them together to create this form of different planets, form of this body, form of trees, form of all these 8.4 million species. It's exactly same as, let us say I am here as one single entity, one single body. Imagine if my earth content is sitting in one place, my water content is sitting in another, my air content is sitting in another. They are all like separate entities now, or separate ingredients in unmanifested form. Now, because at this state of creation, each one of them, they are created, but there is nothing to bind all of them. There is no cohesive energy. So when the Lord, after creating all this, initially he just glanced and he just waits, everything transforms and now everything is created. But then nothing is working together yet because there is no cohesive energy there. As I said, this particular section happens again in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. There is where it is mentioned at this stage where Adi Atmam, Adi Devam and Adi Bhautam, they are all created and nothing is there to get the process to go further, which is to bind all of them to create forms. At this stage, all the 10 sense devatas, they offer beautiful prayers, and those prayers are given in the 3rd canto. So when we come to 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, at that time we will go through exactly same transformation of how one is getting created or transformed into another. But in addition to that, one extra detail that's given there is the prayers that are offered by the 10 sense devatas. And after those prayers, the Lord again gives his energy, which is the Maya Shakti, which acts as the binding energy, as the assembling cohesive force. And at that point, when the Lord sends his energy, at that point the form of universe came to be. Until this point, everything is there, but there is no form yet. Each of the pradhana, devatas, everyone is there, still floating. Now when the Lord infuses his Maya Shakti into all of this whole scheme of things here, at that time the universe starts to be created. This universe is known as Anda or globe, so to speak, but it is golden egg it's given. This is like the cosmic fetus, universal fetus or universal egg, so to speak. And this universe, it is actually floating in the causal ocean for 1000 celestial years. It is inactive, still creation hasn't come to be fully, they are just waiting there. And then the Lord expands himself, enters into each one of these universes. That's why one of his, as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, also known as Hiranya Garbha. Hiranya means the golden egg, Hiranya Anda. And because he enters into that, one of his name is Hiranya Garbha or Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So he enters into each one of them, and after entering into each one of them, he then expands into unlimited. He manifests unlimited hands and legs in the form of Virat Rupa. This Virat Rupa form of the Lord is described by different philosophers as per Srimad Bhagavatam in a slightly different way, but the idea is the same. Some, they describe this Virat Rupa, it is an imaginary form based on their imagination. some philosophers, they explain this Virat Rupa as having the different limbs related to each one of the different planetary systems. Like this huge form of Virat Rupa inside this universe has its head as Satyaloka, the breast and lips Tapaloka, neck is Janaloka, chest is Maharloka, heart Swargaloka, navel to heart Bhuvarloka, navel is Bhuloka, then below Atala, waist, Vitala, thigh, Sutala, knees, Talatala, shanks, calves, Mahatala, ankles, Rasatala, upper portion of the feet, and Patala, lower portion of the feet. In this way, some philosophers, they imagine all the 14 planetary system as different bodily parts of the Virat Rupa. Some philosophers, they describe this Virat Rupa in the form of 4 Varnas also. We have 4 Varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So the Brahmanas are considered to be the mouth or the head of Virat Rupa. Kshatriyas are considered to be the arms, Vaishyas the thighs, and Shudras are considered to be the legs of this Virat Rupa. Likewise, there are other imaginations. Rather than seeing the 14 planetary systems as different bodily parts, some philosophers, they imagine this Virat Rupa as primarily as 3 planetary systems, which is Swargaloka, upper, from chest to the head of Virat Rupa. They imagine all the upper higher planetary systems starting from Swargaloka. Navel, they say this is Bhuvarloka, and from navel all the way to the legs, they are considered to be the lower planetary system. Up until Bhuloka, they are considered to be the legs. So this is a classification of the 14 planetary systems into 3 types: lower, middle, and upper. So the lower planetary system until Bhuloka, they are considered to be the lower part or the legs of the Virat Rupa. The Bhuvarloka is considered to be the navel, and Swargaloka and above, they are considered chest and head of the Virat Rupa form. So in this way, they imagine each one of them. So this is how the process of creation is given in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very interesting section, as I said. We will find it little confusing, the details, but we will see the same description coming again with more detail in the 3rd canto. And if we read it carefully, we'll be able to understand, at least on a very, very high level, how the transformation happens from one material or one element of the creation to the other, like that. So we'll stop here and we'll continue with the next chapter next week. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Samaved Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki Jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Pramanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.